This sword dropped as a post-game reward in late 2023, but its existence a complete accident thanks to a mistake from a programmer at Valve. This item somehow dropped with the Frostbloom unusual particle effect, but on a completely normal, non-unusual sword. It was never meant to be in the game, and because of that, it's extremely buggy, but also incredibly rare, and at this point, almost totally unobtainable. In a way, it's an unreleased test unusual for the 2023 Frostivus effects. If you enjoy the video, please remember to leave a like, it really helps show the video to other Dota 2 players, and remember to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more videos like this one. Now, in the high-tier Dota 2 trading scene, bugged unusuals are king. These are items that only exist due to bugs in the past around 2014 and 2015 that allowed players to equip courier unusual effects on actual hero items. They're ultra rare, they're hilarious, but they're stupidly expensive. And importantly, they were never meant to exist. But this sword is very different, and is the first unusual bugged item we've had in many, many years. I have spoken about this sword in one of my old videos, but I've managed to acquire one myself because I wanted to do some testing and show everybody some new, unique information about this item. The Frostivus 2023 treasure included a new system for unusual items to drop for heroes. The Frostivus treasure had a 1 in 300 chance to include a bonus reward, either the same item you already unboxed or another item from the set in unusual quality with one of the 3 following effects. Candy Caster, which drops presents and candy cane particles behind your hero. Snowdrift, which originally was a black and blue sort of glow around the item. However, this effect did drastically change in how it's presented, as I think it was originally created in a very poor state and was not actually being displayed as it was intended by Valve. And finally, the most interesting effect is Frostbloom. Out of the 3, Frostbloom is easily the best and by far the most desirable and most expensive. This is how the normal Fireborn Odachi looks in the Dota 2 inventory on Steam, and this is mine. You can see there is an unusual effect gem with the Frostbloom effect socketed onto the item. However, in game, the item quality itself isn't even unusual, it just simply has the Frostbloom unusual effect gem. These unusual gems are not like any other unusual items in the game. These gems cannot be swapped out or removed, and they're bound to the items. However, unfortunately, in the public Dota 2 client, this bugged item doesn't map correctly to the cosmetic. The Frostbloom effect displays on the hero's braces and on the belt, rather than on the sword itself. The in-game inventory displays the item as normal mythical quality, while all Frostivus unusuals typically have a quality with the effect name in its title, as the unusual effect gems for these items are hidden in-game and can only be seen in the Steam inventory. So, how did this sword end up being in people's inventories? Well, in late December 2023 and early January 2024, a few people started noticing that this sword was dropping with the Frostbloom unusual effect, but only as a post-game drop. And interestingly, there isn't really any indication in the in-game client that this is anything special. Unless you inspected the item manually, you'd never really know that it was a bugged unusual. It doesn't show an effect gem, there's no visual clue, there's not really anything. When the item does load in the preview, it will show you the effect on the item, but unless you specifically know that it's not meant to look like that, you would have no idea that this was anything different than just a normal item. So it's very possible that a lot of people have these in their inventories and don't even know that they exist. So why and how did this happen? From what I understand, the Fireborn Odachi is one of the earliest cosmetics ever made for Dota 2. It's known that it's one of the very first items in the game to have custom particle effects and animations of any kind, and therefore it's known that Valve uses this item to test cosmetic effects in the past. That's why I believe it was accidentally left in the drop pool with the Frostbloom tag still attached. However, I've done as much digging as I possibly can, and there is absolutely nothing in the public game files that caused this bug. The issue was in the server-side item drop list text file, which controls how items are dropped and what gem associations those items have. I've checked every single item in the game files that deals with these cosmetics around the period of time that this bug was occurring, and I'm 100% certain that this issue was server-side with Valve's item drop list file. This was silently patched, and we've never had any confirmation of why this occurred. But here's the most interesting thing. Like I mentioned, the Frostbloom effect that shows up on Juggernaut is on the braces and the belt and not on the sword itself at all, in the main Dota 2 client. However, in the Dota 2 test build, it actually maps onto the sword perfectly, just as it were meant to. So, it looks like they removed the test version of the effect, but forgot to clean up the drop pool when they created the item in the first place. So, the item drop list included a Frostbloom gem on the Fireborn Odachi when it was being dropped. I'm not confident that we know that every single Fireborn Odachi that dropped during this time period was unusual. It's also possible that they were testing the unusual drop rate. The item might have had an unusual roll chance added to itself rather than just the Frostbloom gem as a baseline. So, if you were dropped a Fireborn Odachi in Dota 2 between December 15th and January 10th, and it does not have the bugged Frostbloom unusual gem on it, I would be really interested to see. So this is what the Frostbloom Fireborn Odachi should have looked like, and honestly, it had the potential to be a top tier bugged unusual cosmetic. If Valve ever fixes the mapping of this item, which they can easily do because it's already there in the other game files, this could genuinely be one of the coolest Juggernaut weapons in the game, and also a really high tier bugged unusual item. In the state it's in, personally I run it with no other cosmetics equipped. I do the same thing when I used ethereal bugged items, because when you start mixing immortals with these items, it loses the broken off feeling and it stops looking so special. But when it's bare bones, it shines in the weirdest way. Also, Juggernaut's taunt works really well with this item. The particles float above the hero and the sword in midair looks absolutely wild as the particle effect glitches out around the hero and the space above the hero's collision box. When this first popped up, there was a lot of contention that this item sucked and wasn't really worth very much, or that it was overpriced for how much it was selling at the time. Honestly, regardless of how it looks though, this sword is an insane collector's item and a piece of Dota 2 item history. That's exactly why I finally grabbed one, but I also wanted to remap the item to show you what the effect should look like, as well as the fact we haven't seen a new bugged unusual like this in so long. So how do you buy one? This is the complicated part. Here's the issue. These are dropped as post-game rewards, and post-game rewards in Dota 2 are not tradable and not marketable, so you can only gift them and gift them once, and then they're locked to the account of the new owner. So if you want to buy one of these, you have to do three things. You have to find somebody who owns one, you have to negotiate a deal, and then you have to get them to gift it to you. Once it's gifted, it's then locked to your account and you can never sell it again. This is why the value of this item is so strange. Post-game item drops do have their own weird values. They typically sell for around 5 to 10% of their actual Steam market value. For example, the Shattered Greatsword for Sven sells for $500 on the Steam market, but the post-game dropped versions go for around $50 because they can't be resold, and once you buy it, it's locked to your account. The same thing applies here on the Fireborn Odachi, so as any of these are sold, the supply is dwindling and dwindling as these items become locked onto new accounts. It's becoming more and more difficult to find somebody who has a giftable version of this item as the days go by. So what does it actually cost? In my experience, I've helped organize the sale of 8 of these swords so far. The going rate has been anywhere from $50 to $200, the average being closer to around $100 than $200. Some people say that that's way too much for how it looks, and that if this were in the chest it would be worth like $30 or $40, but to me that's entirely missing the point. This is a bugged, unreleased, unusual item that was only dropped for a really short period of time and is never going to be dropped again. And secondly, it's also self-limiting in its supply, in that these items are almost effectively being deleted as they're purchased by a new account. So like I said, how post-game item drops typically fetch 5 to 10% of their real value, you can conjecture that if this item was tradable, it likely would have a value of somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500. I'm not sure if that logic entirely tracks, but I can see it being totally justifiable for the first new, true bugged unusual item we've seen in nearly a decade. The really interesting thing here is, if what I think is correct, there was a window in the game that for a short period of time, it was possible to obtain a tradable version of this sword. So to explain this to you, in the drop list, there's going to be a single entry for the Fireborn Odachi, which will include what gems it has, what quality it is, what type it is, etc. They don't rewrite this logic for every single point that this item could be dropped. So anywhere that can award you a Fireborn Odachi in tradable quality, at the time, I think it was possible for those to drop with this unusual effect. So things like the Summer Sale Reward 4, as well as any of the other vintage gift items which drop a random item of mythical or above quality. However, I haven't seen a single version of this item in tradable quality, but those items are very rarely unboxed anymore, and the chance of you hitting it in those items is also incredibly low. The drop list is so long that I think it's very possible that none of these were created in that period of time in tradable quality. The tradable supply of these items is dwindling and almost gone. So if you're a collector, there's probably never been a better time to get your hands on this item. If you own one of these Fireborn Odachi swords and you haven't gifted it to anyone and you're looking to sell it, please contact me in the link below and add me on Steam. I'm happy to link you up with a list of people who I know are looking for this item and are prepared to pay for it. Thank you so much to every member of the channel. It's the easiest way to directly support the channel if you're interested in Dota 2 cosmetics. Every member gets their name added to my inventory to be shown at the end of every main video, and tier 2 members are displayed displayed at the end and rename my best items. Thank you so much for the ongoing support. I have a lot of members only videos which preview a variety of cosmetics, and if you need help looking at any of those items, I'm always happy to help out and post you a private video. Check out the Discord link below if you want to join our Dota 2 community and enter free item giveaways. And as always, thank you so much for watching.